Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our live Q&A on Crushing Doubt. It's every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and I'm always glad to talk mind-body symptoms with you all. I'm here to answer any questions. There are frequently questions that people ask me throughout the week and ask me to bring on the show, so I do have those loaded up, but the people who are here live get the first crack at it. So if anybody's got anything, just let me know. In the meantime, if you haven't already, or if you're new to our site, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below and hit like if you like what you're hearing. So, welcome everyone. I look forward to your questions. We're going to start with a preloaded question as we usually do because people don't usually just show up and immediately type a question. But I know you've got a lot of questions on your mind, everybody. Happy to answer any of them. So, we're bringing up our first question, which was actually the last question asked last week, right as we were closing out. So I wanted to make sure to get back to it. This is from Christina C. Hi, Dan. I have recently discovered there is a whole group of people who believe there is no subconscious or unconscious mind. How would you respond to them other than that's not true? No, I would respond that's not true, but I'm going to say how. I did just release our video on the unconscious mind and how it works. And the thing that I can say to them is that, first of all, I don't actually know where that idea is coming from. Christina had brought up a certain way of thinking that I want to look into more and why they're saying it. And they were talking about some things that do make sense with mind-body symptoms, but then they were also saying there is no subconscious or unconscious mind. So the first thing that I would say is actually there's a huge amount of research that all shows that the unconscious exists. But the other thing is, we know it exists. We know it exists at so many levels. Let's start with basics. Christina's saying hi. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. The first thing that I would say is we know that unconscious thought process exists because your heart wouldn't be beating without your awareness if there wasn't an unconscious mind. There are things that go on outside of our awareness. It is patently obvious. And it's actually kind of almost shocking to hear people say otherwise. Now, it can be hard for people to grasp the nature of the unconscious process. That I can understand. But the fact is, things happen outside of our awareness all the time. You wouldn't be able to have dreams if there wasn't an unconscious. And things happen like there's studies on subliminal messages where you take in things without even realizing it. Even if you're paying just a little bit of attention in your life, just a tiny bit, you know that things happen unconsciously. You set your keys down and you walk away and you don't know where they are. But guess what? The unconscious part of your mind does know where they are. You just can't remember. You weren't present for it. But things are happening unconsciously all the time. So, Christina, that's what I would say for starters. It's a bigger discussion and there's a lot I'd want to say about it. But let me know if that does it justice. And if there are follow-ups, just let me know. So let's bring up our next question. And I'm actually just going to check my screen because I made some notes on one of these preloaded questions. So, Courtney, can we bring up the next one? Let me see which one is coming up. They're working on it. So, I think this one is coming from Rick. He had a really... Oh, no. Okay, we got Pat. No, that's fine, Courtney. Don't worry about it. We'll get to Rick's later. So, Pat B from the UK. She and I traded an email or two a little while back, and she said, you may remember my email where I had a dream that seemed to answer some of my deep emotions, worked on these, and instantly the pain went. Now, this is a true story. This did happen, much to Pat's surprise. And let's leave this up, Courtney, because I'm going to have some things I'm going to need to say about it. Forward a day. Woke up with the worst fibromyalgia pain I had ever experienced and still in pain. Can you explain why this can happen? I had one amazing pain-free day and felt overjoyed. Then bang, also sciatic in both legs, as if my brain says, I will keep you safe. Now, I assume, Pat, what you mean by the brain saying I will keep you safe is that that's the distraction piece that people talk about with Sarno, that the symptoms are there to protect you from certain knowledge. Well, that is part of what's happening. But here's the other thing that I can say. When you have a success, and this is true in psychology, let alone in symptom work, when you have a success and there's a symptom or a defense, psychological defense. It's going to try to fight back. And the minute you conquer doubt in one way, there are times where it will come back twice as strong to try to get you doubting. What I want to encourage you is when you master this a little bit more, when you're more certain, it won't be able to do that to you, because when it does, it'll kind of make you laugh. You'll be like, oh, now you're doing this. I had this experience. Mike P., who has had lots of questions on here, he had this experience recently. He got to a place where he didn't have any doubt that he had no structural issues. And then he suddenly had a new symptom that was totally different. Or you may have seen my testimonial with Logan. Logan recently had anxiety kick up as a symptom imperative. Remember, that's when a symptom comes to replace another. So Pat, what I would say that happened here is you were gaining confidence, and the part of your brain that wants to hold on to this ability to function decided it was going to try to have you have a lot of doubt. The fact that it happened right afterwards actually is not only not an accident, but it is a sign that mind-body work works. Because the pain went and then the symptom got bad, that's not random. So, Pat, you're probably going to watch this later because in the UK, it's almost the middle of the night. So I'm sure you're not watching this live, but you're going to watch this and you can let me know if I answered your question well enough. What I will say is you need to keep challenging the doubt, keep at it, and it will start to die down again. When you beat it a second time, you become even stronger. When you beat it a third time, you become even stronger. Every time you have a chance to get stronger. Now, we have some comments from Matt Anderson. Welcome back, Matt. Thank you for joining us again. That does remind me, Matt was the very first person to come on video. And if you want to do that, you can come on at www.callcrushingdoubt.org. And you can come on video. You can also just come on audio if you don't want to show your face or you're shy that way. That's totally fine. So Matt's question. During initial discussions of mind-body symptoms, it makes sense that practitioners' thoughts will continue to evolve from their own personal experiences, research, patients, etc. It's great to have a plethora of ideas come to the table. However, at some point, do you believe if everyone in the field becomes universally aligned with agreeing on the same terminology and ideas, i.e. TMS, PPD, MBS, the things we call it, neuroplastic pain, that positive shifts in the discussion could be expedited? Great question, Matt. Here's my personal opinion on that. Yes, I do believe that if we all coalesced around certain ideas, especially ones that are correct, it would speed up the discussion and it would make things easier for sufferers. I had a question recently, I think it was last week, actually. And Rhonda, I'm going to get to your question. I see that the thing that happened to Pat keeps happening to you, so I'm going to get to you. But Matt, the discussion could shift dramatically if we all came around certain ideas. But here's the thing. They have to be correct ideas. We cannot coalesce around ideas that aren't correct because that won't help us. That's like what I talk about with Kepler. I talk about how he came in and talked about elliptical orbits as opposed to circular orbits. He had the right idea. It was 100% true. And everybody agreed to it. So I think there needs to be some healthy, respectful, and honest and open and scientific debate about this stuff. And I'm here to be part of that debate because I don't agree with a lot of things that are said. I have a huge amount of respect for the people in this field and some of the things they do, but I'm going to have different opinions about certain things. As an example, it was brought up recently by, I think it was someone named Barbara with the last name L. It was a comment on it was on the Eric Sherman video. Now, Eric has a certain take on how to work with mind-body symptoms. And I've often said, I think that he is a mind-body informed therapist, a mind-body informed psychoanalyst. I consider myself at this point to be a therapy informed mind-body specialist. And it's a very important distinction. That's not something that everyone believes in. And so that's one area, Matt, where we would have to continue to talk about, well, what is true here? Why does it work? And I'm not saying what Eric doesn't work. It's just, it's a different thing. He's doing therapy that is informed by the mind-body process. I am actually working to try to get rid of symptoms fast using therapy as my backdrop. So that's one area. Neuroplasticity is another. It's not something that I actually agree with about everybody. I do believe in neuroplasticity. I do believe in neural pathways, but I don't think of them the same way as some people do. Some people think that the neural pathways become very grooved and settled in, and that it's going to take a lot of work to settle that down. I actually don't believe that. And it doesn't make sense with the data. The data, and I'm just talking personal experience as well, my personal experience and other people's personal experience, things change so fast when there's an aha moment, and they change so completely that it doesn't make sense that the neural pathways are really grooved. I believe that they're scientifically there. So there's a lot we have to do to get this settled. And my goal is to keep having these debates and looking at science and logic until it really falls into place. We have to get the Kepler answer, not the circular orbit answer where we're 80% right. So I'm going to continue working on that. Anytime things are brought to my attention that are discrepant from what I'm thinking, I'm going to factor that in and get it right. We have to get it right, and then we have to come together. And Matt, I love that idea. I'm going to keep working on ways to do that. And that's the main thing I can say about it, but I want to hear more from you. So Rhonda Galone had a comment that this keeps happening to me. I assume you were referring to what Pat was saying. A lot of people have this, Rhonda. They start to get better and boom, they get hit with another symptom. And sometimes the symptoms are even bigger. So here's the thing. One of the reasons that I think the work that I do is different than other mind-body practitioners is that I'm a little more oriented to what is happening when that happens and what you need to do about it. A lot of people just say, well, there must be some emotion that came up, so you just got to keep focusing on the emotion. And they're stuck in the emotions column. The emotions column is fantastic. It's very useful. But if they're stuck there, they're not going to give you the chance to work in the areas where it's really affecting you. The doubt column is incredibly powerful, and doubt creeps in very, very quickly. I had a recent discussion with over email with Logan, actually, where this happened. He had gotten to a place where he was like, my symptoms are 90% better. I can crush doubt all the time. I'm having a new symptom. And he was like, I think this symptom relates to power. And I asked him about it a little bit. He told me a little bit about it. And I was like, you know what? I actually think doubt has crept back in. And he was like, oh my God, it did. You always have to check back in with yourself about whether doubt has crept in. So if this keeps happening to you, we need to combat doubt very fiercely with science and logic. The power column, though, is very important because one of the reasons it comes back in is your relationship to your symptoms can be one where you feel that the symptoms are in charge. I was just meeting with somebody today, right before this Q&A, and one of their issues that they were running into was that they were starting to feel that they were too tired to beat the symptoms. That's what they said. And I said to her, listen, you may not realize it, but the way you're phrasing that to yourself is saying the symptoms are stronger than me. I can never beat them. That was putting her in a power way below the symptoms. You can work on doubt and you can also work on power. You can raise yourself back up and say, no, these symptoms are not going to get me. The doubt is not going to get me. It takes a lot of willpower and a lot of work, but it becomes automatic with time. So Rhonda, let me know if that addresses it a bit more about what you want to be doing with that. Now, Mike P, speak of the devil. I spoke of you earlier, Mike, about some things. So I'm going to read what he wrote here. In the PDFs, it says, with enough practice, decreasing doubt, increasing power, you will be able to dominate your symptoms. But doesn't this imply that the conscious mind is more powerful than the unconscious mind? We know the unconscious mind is vastly more powerful than conscious thought. Okay, fantastic question, Mike, as usual. I love your questions. Not that I don't love other people's questions, but Mike does tend to ask these really razor sharp things. So here's what I think, Mike. So the fact is, when you're doing battle with the unconscious mind, for lack of a better way of putting it, the unconscious mind is not more powerful when we are consciously aware of it. it immediately becomes weaker. If you're aware, the conscious mind wins. If you're not aware of, the unconscious mind wins. And it's actually that simple. So the way to dominate the symptoms is through knowledge. The information that I'm giving makes it conscious, and then the unconscious mind cannot dominate anymore. It's one of the reasons I did this video on the unconscious mind and how it works. If you can become aware of that, it will not rule you anymore. So the reason the unconscious mind is vastly more powerful is twofold. One, it has many more functions than the conscious mind. It runs deeper. It has a bigger percentage of your brain. There's no question. But when you are conscious, it can't win. Not anymore. Your forebrain, which is the seat of executive functioning and the ability to do things, can overrule anything as long as you're aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you will be ruled by the unconscious mind. So my information is about getting you the right information. And if that's the case, you will be able to dominate your symptoms. Let me know if that answers it. Oh, you actually asked a further question. So how can the conscious mind ever dominate the tricks of the unconscious mind? It's really what I said. If you know the tricks, it's conscious. And then the unconscious mind will try to play other tricks. And that's kind of what's happening with Rhonda or Pat. It's going to try to, or Logan, it tries to play new tricks. And that is what it will do. I see a note acknowledging. I want to remind people, if you want me to acknowledge you directly, I want you to remind me that it's okay to talk about you directly, because this, my meetings are confidential. But if you are willing to share your story and you're willing to talk openly, that is something that I will do. The people who I'm talking openly with have already given me permission to do that. So just remember, give me direct permission, and then I'll refer to you directly. We have a comment from Rita LaBarbera. Actually, Rita, you were the one I was thinking of, who we were talking about the Eric Sherman video. So you were the one who commented on that, and I really appreciated that input. What Rita was saying is that there are people who, and I'm going to get to your comment in a second, Rita, but she was saying that there are people who don't have the training in the field necessarily, but they have the direct experience resolving the pain. Well, we had an interview with Dan Buglio. He doesn't have direct training, but he has massive experience with himself. And he's done a good job of observing himself and understanding what it's about. He also has done some training, actually. He trained, I believe, with a guy named Adam Heller for a bit, but then he's adapted it. And that's the thing. Who trained me in what I do? I'll tell you, the only person who trained me in what I do is myself. My back trained me. If anything trained me, it was my back, the symptoms. So we have to remember that. Now, Rita's making a comment here. Sometimes it's just a learned habit. Rita, I wonder if you could say more about that in the chat in terms of what you were referring to. I think what you were referring to is that when symptoms return, it's a learned habit. So I'm going to answer your question or your statement as if that is what you're saying, but if I'm wrong about it, please let me know. So yes, there is a learned habit part of the experience. And I think what Rita's referring to essentially is you could get rid of a symptom and feel really good, but the learned habit will come crashing back. Well, I don't disagree with you, Rita. I just have a different way of looking at that exact same thing. I interpret the learned habit through the lens of doubt. The reason that the learned habit is there is because of doubt. And if you don't have doubt, then that learned habit actually will die away right away. So it's a very powerful learned habit, and I don't disagree with you. But if I see it through the lens of doubt, then we have something that we can do to fight against it. Rhonda is saying, yes, thank you very much that it was a helpful answer. I'm glad. And certainly let me know. I don't mind follow-up at all. I love these discussions. Okay, Matt Anderson says, speaking of responding to my response, love that response. I love how you differ on others with the neural pathways component. It helps reassure people that dramatic shifts can happen quickly if the correct knowledge is provided. Thank you for that acknowledgement, Matt, and I appreciate it. But it really is important. One of the reasons I say everything that I say is I think about what's going to be helpful for all of you, because I know what was helpful for me and I know what was not helpful for me. And there was a lot that was not helpful. And some of what was not helpful was said by some of the most helpful people, even Sarno. Some of the things that were said in these books were downright worrisome. I was like, uh-oh, well, what does this mean? If you notice, when I talk, there's a lot of times where I will say one thing and then I'll say another. Like when I complimented Mike P on his questions, I thought, uh-oh, everybody's going to think the other questions aren't good. You guys asked fantastic questions. Every single one of you. I've loved every single question. And I'm not just saying that. You are experiencing the things that the sufferers experience. And we need to bring that to the table. We need to help people see that you've got these great questions. And the neural pathways component is something that I came across more after I had gotten better, but it would have been very worrisome to me. Anytime I would hear, well, it could take a while, I knew that wasn't helpful. Or when people say, I'm 99% sure that it's TMS, if you're anything like me, all you hear is you're 1% not sure. That's it. And 99% sure, that's great for lots of things. You know, like if I were like, okay, I'm going to ask a panel of experts who's going to win this sporting event, and they were all 99% sure, that I could go with because the consequences are not that big of a deal. But if you're asking me, are you only 99% sure that I can get better? The consequences are too big for me to settle for that. And I would think that's true for all of you. So, Matt, I appreciate that recognition. I think I really try to think about what even the solutions that are posed that cause problems. Sarno is another good example. And then Susan, I'm going to get to your question. Sarno talks about all these people who got better really fast. Well, that becomes very worrisome to the people who are not getting better fast. And I understand that. And so I decided I need to figure out what is happening. What is distinguishing between the people who get better fast and the people who don't get better as fast? All along, though, I maintain you can get better in an instant. Every single moment is a chance to get better. It's a chance to get stronger. It's a chance to cure a symptom. So let's keep up the discussion that way. Thank you for appreciating it and noting that, Matt. I really do appreciate it. Okay, Susan W. says, glad to hear that the conscious mind can control the unconscious with the knowledge. Was confused about this. Good, I'm glad we addressed that. Had some weird dreams last night from experiences long ago, so maybe it's because I'm more aware of how things work. Yes, Susan, I think that's absolutely right. When people start talking about unconscious life, it becomes conscious. And then other unconscious things start bubbling to the surface. If you saw my video on the unconscious, one thing that you will know is that the unconscious is always driving to the surface. It actually wants to communicate these things. There's a part of you that I call the ego, or we talk about that in psychology, that needs to keep it under control, that you can't always be aware of everything. But as you start to become aware of things, you become aware of more things. And so people who do what's called psychoanalysis, where they meet 3 or 4 times a week, they usually have an increase in dreams. Not in actual dream function. If you followed the function of the brain through like a PET scan, you're always having the same amount of dreams. But the awareness goes up. And it's another thing that can happen when you're aware of what your symptoms are communicating to you. You're going to get more information there too. It has a life of its own, and that's part of the process. Okay, we have a comment from Sylvia Sierra. I just got on. Dan, I was doing so great the last week after your interview with the Curable CEO. I remember your comment, Sylvia. Then seemingly out of nowhere, I got a severe migraine attack yesterday, and it's lasted into today. I've been trying to stay calm and rest, reassure myself, etc., but it is so frustrating when I feel like I make a breakthrough and then wham. So this is a very big theme tonight. People who are getting breakthroughs and then getting slammed with something. So Sylvia, here's something I want to reassure you about. The second time the symptoms come back is always the strongest. The first time isn't even the strongest. It's when you master it that first time, and then that first symptom comes back. That is when fear is at its absolute maximum, because the feeling is, oh no, the thing that worked isn't working. That's not what's happening. It's not that it's not working anymore. What's actually happening is that your psychological defense was lying in wait, and it was always going to do something. Now, it could have been big or it could have been small, but it was going to try to find some land to stand on. So your job is to remember your success and to remember that that was not an accident. And if you can master this second symptom, you'll become even stronger. It happens every time. When you master it the second time, I mean, think about it. This is true for anything. When you have something happen, you believe that it could happen more, but you might think, well, maybe it was just a fluke. I don't know. I mean, it's like if you do something good and you're able to do it. Let's say I'm a singer and I play guitar. So let's say you play in front of an audience the first time and you do it and you're like, wow, I was able to do it. Well, you could end up thinking, I don't know, could I do it again? Second time you do it, it's a breakthrough. And so, Sylvia, I know this is frustrating and scary too. I don't blame you at all, but we can beat this back. And when you do, you'll be even stronger. So try to think about the emotions column. What might have led to this? And if that doesn't work, move to the doubt column and figure out, how did doubt creep in here? Because maybe you thought, oh, I can get better, but I don't know if it can last. That kind of thing. So you want to think about those things. And if doubt doesn't work, then you move to the power column. And if you don't get it then, it means you missed it, and we go back. And if you need some troubleshooting, you just reach out to me and let me know. We'll beat this. I have no doubt. We have a couple of other comments. I just want to note we've got 2 first-time commenters. Douglas Minty, I think we've actually interacted over email, but I know your name is extremely familiar. So welcome, and I'm going to get to your question soon. And Lupe Gerfin, also totally new name. So I'm looking forward to talking to you both. A couple comments from Susan W. still. I have had so many people tell me negative things about the body per se, and I'm sure it affected my thinking. And I'm sure it made me think I couldn't get better. Absolutely. I just finished writing the 9th chapter of my book, and one of the things I write about in the doubt conversation is that society brings a lot of information to us, and a lot of it's not helpful. When I was getting better, I had to shut out society. And I don't mean I didn't see anybody, but I just, like, when I was seeing anybody, I was fully prepared to just be like, no, because there were going to be so many people telling me all kinds of things that were going to be harmful. Oh, I heard this or I heard that. And people don't realize it, but speaking of the unconscious, they're bubbling with aggression, and they walk around and they tell people things that just make people worried all the time. And I'm not trying to say it critically about people. I like people in general, but they do bring that unconscious aggression, and you need to be aware of it, and you need to decide, who are you going to trust? Well, I was like, I'm going to trust me and Sarno. And then I'm going to read a couple of these mind body people, and I'm going to see who I can trust. And I was like, okay, well, now I can trust Eric Sherman about this. And that's why I went to him and asked him hundreds of questions and got the answers. You have to decide who you can trust. And I would highly encourage you, make it a very narrow perspective of people who understand the mind body process. If they don't understand the mind body process and they don't understand trauma, you don't need to listen to them. These doctors who don't understand them, they're great for life and death things. We do have to rely on them. I'm glad to get it checked out. But if they tell you your pain is because of a herniated disc or arthritis, well, I'm sorry, but they're disagreeing with the New England Journal of Medicine and all their top journals, and you can't listen to them. So, Susan, I love that conversation, and let's keep having it. Good. Douglas says I have the right person. I was fairly certain, but he has a question here. And I do have some more preloaded questions, but I'm always going to try to get to the ones that are brought directly here. Though I will try to be extra fair to those people who are in Australia or England or other countries that can't be here live. I'll always try to prioritize that. So Douglas says, I don't know if this has been asked yet. How does one craft the core narrative? I feel like I don't know myself as well as other people know me, if that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense, Douglas. And you're going to be very pleased to hear that the video that comes out tomorrow is the video on how to craft the core narrative. So you don't have to wait long. We are going to put that out, and it gives you an example of it and a very detailed kind of process. But I'm going to give you a short answer here because a lot of people are wondering this. So the core narrative has a couple of different aspects to it. One, it is a very broad concept about life and its vulnerabilities. It's a high stakes thing, something like validity or belongingness or being loved or being heard and respected or being believed, something that is a very, very big ticket item. And then you attach that to something very specific in your life. The specific thing in your life could be I suffered physical abuse or sexual abuse, or I had a traumatic event, or I had a death in the family that, reverberated, or I had a person who was emotionally abusive all the time. You attach that broad picture, that broad high stakes picture, to something very specific, and you talk with yourself about how it interfaced with you, what it caused in you. Once you get that, you've got your central narrative. It's the basics of your life. I say this all the time. For me, I had lots of things that affected me, but in the end, the death of my father, my mother being depressed from that, my brother being kind of a psychological mess because of it, all of that stuff was my whole environment. And I took it in from the beginning, and it affected my sense of validity. That's what my core narrative is. So you hear I had a high stakes thing like validity, and I attached it to a very specific, not just event, but a series of events. And they are the core of who I am. And you'll know it's true when it fits with you. So if it doesn't, then we keep looking. We may bring in a new idea and see how does that idea fit with the other idea so we can get it to its core. And lastly, Douglas, we need to pick something that we're going to do about it. I decided that I was going to not look for father figures anymore. I was done with that. I essentially was going to be my own man. And that sounds really easy when I say it that way. It was not. It was incredibly difficult, but it was a decision. So you're going to make a decision about an action step. Okay, Lupe Gerfin. I'm practicing applying what Dr. Sarno, you, and Dan Buglio present. I do have spondylolisthesis. That's always one of the hardest ones to say. Okay, so Lupe, the one thing that you need to know, is that there's a whole list of diagnoses that we know are incidental. There are structural diagnoses that have nothing to do with that sort of thing. So you can cross that off your list. The one you just listed is one that Sarno talks about all the time. Every mind-body person who understands these structural issues says that's not what's causing your pain. So I'm hoping that will help you. But let me know what you need help with. Now, I do want to say again, for those of you who are new here, if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, because then you'll know what's coming up. Hit like if you like what you're hearing. That lets me know, did I hit on things that people like or not? So it's good data, and I also appreciate it. And put your comments below. I've been having great conversations with people. I do respond to people directly, and I'm going to keep doing so. So you keep it coming. Okay, Mike P. Along with Sylvia's question, any recommendations for dealing with moments of mental frustration about either the slow speed of progress or the significant ups and downs? Another great question. Big surprise. So there's a lot I can say about this, Mike, but I think what we really want to do is make sure that we take some time to take care of ourselves. So what I do with really any question or any experience is I ask myself a question. Questions are the key to getting better. So you want to ask yourself, what am I getting frustrated about? Because maybe it's I can't stand how doubt keeps creeping in. Maybe that's the frustration. Or maybe the frustration is you're trying to build your core narrative and you can't figure it out. So Douglas, if you haven't figured it out yet, which I wouldn't think you would because I just answered your question like 2 minutes ago, but if it takes some time, that's okay. What I want to encourage you is to remember that you don't have to do this alone. You can reach out to other people. You can reach out to me. But more importantly, you don't even have to do it alone with yourself. Once the process begins, the process has begun. Your unconscious mind, the part of it that is driving to be more powerful, is actually going to be helping you. So you're not alone. What I would say is you want to just try to recognize that mental frustration is an attempt by the negative side of the mind-body process to convince you that this is going to take too long. It's trying to get you to give up. So you want to interpret it through the unconscious lens. It makes sense that you would be consciously frustrated. But in my experience, all the significant ups and downs, they're all chances to get stronger, just like we were talking about with Sylvia. That second time you can get stronger. The third time you can get stronger. I've conquered symptoms hundreds and thousands of times now. So how strong do you think I feel when a new symptom comes on? I'm like, I've already done this. It kind of makes me laugh at this point. And you can get to that point too. So Rhonda Galone says, I'm new here, Dan. So I've seen you in the comments, but this is the first time you're here. So welcome. What are the columns you were referring to? Doubt, etc. Okay, thank you for asking, Rhonda. I'm sorry that I've been talking about that without everybody knowing. So the basic gist of what I do is I separate out the experience of mind-body work to be understood in 3 different columns. And the reason that I did this is that I found that everyone was talking about emotions. So the emotions column is basically your basic themes. This is different than your core narrative, by the way, because there's lots of different things. Like the death of my father was one, the tumultuous relationship I had with my brother is another, the following in his footsteps and never feeling like I, matched up enough, or feeling that people didn't understand me or didn't believe me. I had, you're going to have many, many different themes. As you fill out your emotions column, it's those themes that tell you what to look for. And the emotions column is about the onset or the uptick of symptoms. So essentially, Rhonda, what this is it's a system for understanding these things. The doubt column tends to be more about chronic pain. And in the chronic pain sphere, I like to talk about 3 levels of doubt. Doubt as to whether it's a mind-body issue, doubt as to whether mind-body issues can be fully cured, and doubt as to whether you yourself can cure that symptom. Any of those doubts become a cognitive loop where you get into either a fear process or a doubt process, or you just have questions or confusion that contribute to an issue dragging on. And then the third column is the power column. The power column is about your relationship with yourself, but it also it covers your relationship with yourself in conjunction with others and in conjunction with your symptoms. And that's where the core narrative comes in to help. There's a lot more I can say about it, but I wanted to give you a quick rundown on it and let me know if there's more questions with that. Now, I did want to also note we have a new person, and I'm totally going to botch the spelling, or so the pronunciation. The spelling I can see myself, but I'm going to botch the pronunciation, I think. So it looks like it's Veljko. Oh my goodness. Hold on. I'm gonna leave off on the last name. I don't want to butcher it for you. But Veljko says, love your work, and I appreciate you coming here. If you haven't already, Veljko, click subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, and that way you'll be up to speed, and put your comments below. I'd love to talk with you directly. Okay. Lupe accidentally hit send on her first part about spondylolisthesis. So she's saying, I also have neurosacral oh, man, do they make these names hard? Plexipopathy on my right side. Okay, so Lupe, that actually is another one that fits in with it. So, I think the main thing to think about is you don't have any limitations. Doctors have not given you any diagnosis that actually is worrisome. If you match up diagnoses with a mind-body professional like myself, or, you can also be with, if you need to go to an MD specifically, Howard Schubener is great. David Schechter's good. I didn't mean to say one was great and one was good. That's a total mistake. I'm just saying they're good. These are solid people. You can get lists of names of people who can help with this. And that includes there's a great, dermatologist in New York, Roy Seidenberg, I believe is his name. They're specialists in all these things. Dave Clark is a gastroenterologist. There are people who can validate this for you. And what I would encourage you is, if you're believing in this and you feel that we're making sense scientifically and logically, then go ahead and trust us and rely on that. Now I'm going to get to Paula's question. Paula Saslow, along the same line, can symptoms plateau sometimes? And would that mean that maybe your thinking has plateaued too? It could reflect you're lazy or tired and about to give up. Great question. Symptoms plateau pretty regularly. This is how I came up with the power column. The power column is all about plateaus. So when I hear about plateaus, I go straight to the power column. This is where the doubt column and power column line up, actually. When things plateau, you're naturally going to have doubt. You're going to say, why is it not getting better? What's happening here? Well, the power column is where I can explain what that doubt is. So I love this part of the question. And would that mean that your thinking is plateaued too? It doesn't necessarily mean your thinking is plateaued, but it does reflect on your thinking. When you're thinking a certain way, it tends to plateau. If you're not thinking, you can get better. One of the things I discovered in Sarno was that the very first time I realized that it was funny. He said that you have to go back to getting just behaving normally, normal physical activity. And I thought he was just saying to do that because you can. But I realized later he was actually saying it because it fights doubt. It is a way that you can break through a plateau. Now, Paula, you say it could reflect you're lazy or tired and about to give up. I don't actually believe that people are lazy. I just don't. I don't think that that's the explanation. I think that you can criticize yourself for being lazy, but really this is a battle. It's hard work. It's very hard to do these things and fight through it. So don't call yourself lazy. You could get tired, but if you are tired, remember there's a power issue there. You're thinking that the symptoms have you beat. People could be about to give up. Yes, and some people do give up for a time anyway, but they do tend to come back because this is the cure that works. And it's understandable that you could get tired or fed up. All of these things make sense. But I want you to keep fighting through because if you can understand that the symptoms are also a communication, then you don't have to view it as a fight with them all the time. And maybe that's part of the problem when you plateau at a certain point. Lots of reasons for plateaus, and we can get into that later. I want to get to the last couple questions here, and we'll come back to plateaus another time. So people should bring that up. Okay, Matt Anderson says, we often hear about dogs needing CBD or thunder coats. I don't know if that's the right idea. I don't have a dog, so I don't know. I had a dog growing up, but I wasn't that responsible for it on occasion. I have a friend that has a 5-year-old wire-haired, pointy griffin with severe separation anxiety. Can mind-body treatment also be applied to our pets? Oh, great question. So here's what I would say. Pets do have mind-body issues very clearly. And pets are another example of that question about does the unconscious exist? You see it in pets all the time. They're dreaming. They're twitching as they dream. What do you think's going on there? They're not just having random twitches. They have a consciousness, and they have to have a consciousness. They see you and they get excited to see you. Or they see somebody who reminds them of somebody who scared them and they get scared. Pets very clearly have these ideas. Can mind-body treatment be applied to the pets? That's a great question. I mean, I think that you can at least apply good emotional treatment of pets, and it can change the picture. The dog I had growing up, shout out to Bridget. I can't believe that was her name. Well, we inherited that name. So for all the Bridges out there, no offense. But she was traumatized. We got her from a homeless shelter, and she carried a lot of that with her. And I think in a way you can do mind-body treatment in that way. And in fact, it's very natural with pets. If you treat them well, their bodies follow suit. So I would say you have to do a different kind of mind-body treatment, but because you can't access their consciousness and kind of educate them on these things. You can talk to them, but they'll look at you and just be like, "Can I have some cheese?" They're not gonna relate like people do. But I think naturally that's what we're doing. We're helping them see a different experience. And in a way we can learn a lot from pets because they take in the experience and it becomes real in the body. Same thing is true with humans. In fact, in some ways it's harder with humans because our intellect gets in the way. It causes all that doubt. I don't think pets have doubt. Once they get a sense that things are safe, they do calm down. So I really like that question. It's very useful. Are there any other questions? We're going to wrap up soon. I do have some that were preloaded that I'm going to bring over to the next one. If your preloaded question didn't get answered, certainly feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer it in the interim, or if you want me to roll it over into the next Q&A, I happily will. So it has been a pleasure being here with you guys, and I could answer these questions all day. It's fun. You guys are bringing great questions. I think this is great information for all the people out there as well. So thank you for participating. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you directly. I hope people are enjoying this work, but keep letting me know. I'm taking the feedback, and I'm working hard for you guys to get you the information that you need. Thank you so much for watching.